Hey, for today's algebra problem solving video, I'm going to take you through what looks like a very daunting problem, solving it using pretty much three simple steps using a table. This is an algebra problem from Edward Zaccaro's book Challenge Math. It's at the Einstein level, which means he considers it a fairly difficult problem. Whether you're using a table or whether you are using algebra, the first steps are the exact same, and that is making sure you really understand your problem, know the problem. So let's read through this, and it looks like a really challenging problem, but as we break it down, you're going to see it's not quite as hard as it seems at first. The problem reads, I have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, $1 bills, and $5 bills. There are twice as many nickels as pennies, twice as many dimes as nickels, 3 fewer quarters than dimes, and the same number of $1 bills and $5 bills as there are nickels. The total value of the money I have is $93.82. How many dimes do I have? Well, that was a lot of information just thrown your way. Let's make sure we fully understand that. To make sure, we're going to do what I call a know chart. And we're just going to list what we know, K-N-O-W. So let's list our facts, and as we list our facts, we're going to try and put them in mathematical terms, not just sentence writing. We want to think about math relationships. Algebra, and I'm not even going to be using algebra here, but algebra is all about relationships between different numbers, and we use variables to represent that. A table is the same thing. You're looking at the relationships. So let's really pay attention to the relationships as we read these. I have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, $1 bills, and $5 bills. All right, so I'm just going to write down, not the complete sentence, but I'm going to say have pennies, and through this problem we'll probably call that P. Nickels, we'll probably call that N. Dimes, D. Quarters, Q, $1 bills and $5 bills. So I'm going to say ones, and maybe I'll just call that with the number 1, and fives. And I'll probably just call that number 5. Now let's look at our next relationship. And as I do this, you can pretty much get rid of the information because I'm having it in my note chart. So I'm not even going to need to reread the problem. There are twice as many nickels as pennies. Well, twice as many nickels as pennies. Let's think about the mathematical relationship. I'm not going to write twice as many nickels as pennies. I'm going to just write nickels equals pennies times 2. N equals P times 2. Let's take me through that next piece of information. Twice as many dimes as nickels. So dimes equal nickels times 2. And you could also think about it if the nickels are the pennies times 2 and the dimes are the nickels times 2, then they also must be the pennies times 4. You won't need to know this so much to solve the problem. If you're using algebra, you're going to need to have to think about these little connections a little bit deeper. In a table, and that's what I love about the table, one thing just builds off the next. So this isn't even going to be an important piece of information as we solve it. Twice as many dimes as nickels, 3 fewer quarters than dimes. 3 fewer quarters than dimes. So quarters, mathematically, are going to be dimes minus 3. And the same dollar and the same number of $1 bills and $5 bills as there are nickels. So I'm going to write ones equal fives, which equal nickels. So we have a connection here, which means also the ones are the pennies times 2, and the fives are the pennies times 2. So I'm just going to put a little arrow there so to show that connection a little bit further. The total value is $93.82. So I'm going to say total equals $93.82. And in any note chart, we always write our question. The question is how many dimes? It's so important to actually literally write out this question. Because a lot of times people will solve the whole problem, they'll have great steps, but they won't answer what is being asked. Make sure you're paying attention to the dimes when you actually write your answer down. Now, this problem is going to require a pretty big table because as you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different parts, and we're interested in finding out the total. So let's think about your table. We're going to need to put in 6 categories plus 1 for the total. I always like to line it up from least to greatest. So instead of dividing or subtracting, I like to try to think about what's the smallest one. Well, in this case, it's pennies, because the nickels are the pennies times 2. So I'm going to put nickels in the next category. And then I'm going to put my 1s and 5s because those are the same as the nickels. Don't know why we got that message there. And then I'm going to put 1s and 5s. And then after my 5s, do I put quarters or dimes? I'm going to put quarters because quarters is dimes minus 3. And then I will put my total. All right. I like to also put little notes above what I'm solving it. So for pennies, that's going to be like half of dimes. So that's going to be, I'm sorry, half of nickels. So that's going to be nickels divided by 2 because nickels are pennies times 2. And that's going to be the same here, or they equal n. Because your 1s and your 5s are the same as nickels. And then the dimes are going to be nickels times 2. And this is going to be dimes minus 3. And the total I put up in parentheses is going to be 93.82. All right, now to begin solving it, we need to think to ourselves, well, we want, this total is under $100. Well, I know when I think about my 5s, 20 5s is $100. So I know there has to be, my answer is going to have to be less than 20.